true portrait of an apostle, written and read by Homer Slack. Mark 3:13-16 says this, quote, "And he went up on the mountain and called to him those who he desired, and they came to him, and he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach and have authority to cast out demons. He appointed the 12. Close quote. Apostle means sent one. Local ministers are called to preach, teach, or to shepherd God's people, but an apostle is one who is called and then sent outside the local church to reach others. The picture of a missionary today is the closest fit to the biblical portrait of an apostle. Let's examine biblical criteria for apostleship. 1. Discipleship. An apostle is firstly called aside by Jesus to spend time with him and learn obedience. 2. Commissioning. An apostle is then sent to preach the gospel he has received from Jesus himself once his obedience is complete. 3. Mission. An apostle takes the truth into new geographic and spiritual regions. Spiritual meaning where error prevails, they teach the truth. Where darkness or ignorance prevails, they come with the light of the gospel. 4. Testimony. An apostle faces and overcomes dangers and great suffering. This includes self-induced suffering in order to preserve the integrity of their precious cargo, that is, the gospel. 5. Ministry. They are given power to perform miracles as proof of the authenticity of their message. Let's talk about these points and look at Paul's apostolic credentials. Number 1, which is discipline. Discipled by Jesus and not man. Quote, "I was chosen to be an apostle by Jesus Christ and by God the Father, who raised him from the dead. No mere human chose or appointed me to this work." Galatians 1, verse 1. Paul seems to have spent 3 years in seclusion receiving his message from Jesus. I quote, "But even before I was born, God had chosen me, so that I would announce his message to the Gentiles. I didn't talk this over with anyone. I didn't say a word, not even to the men in Jerusalem who were apostles before I was. Instead, I went at once to Arabia, and afterwards I returned to Damascus. 3 years later, I went to visit Peter." End quote. And that is found in Galatians chapter 1, 15-18. Point number 2, commissioning. Commissioned by Jesus, not man. Quote, "I want you to know that no one made up the message I preach. It wasn't given or taught to me by some mere human. My message came directly from Jesus Christ when he appeared to me." End quote. And that is found in Galatians chapter 1, 11-12. Quote, "They realized that God had sent me with the good news for Gentiles." End quote. That is Galatians chapter 1 and verse 7. Point number 3, mission. He was given a mission of great geographic and spiritual scope. Geographic dangers. And I quote, "I have been shipwrecked 3 times, and I have had to spend a night and a day in the sea. During my many travels, I have been in danger from rivers, robbers, my own people, and foreigners. My life has been in danger in cities, in deserts, at sea, etc." End quote. And that is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 26. Spiritual dangers, that is, persecuted by the devil's people. And I quote, 5 times the Jews gave me 39 lashes with a whip. 3 times the Romans beat me with a big stick, and once my enemies stoned me. My life has also been in danger with people who only pretended to be the Lord's followers. End quote. And that is 2 Corinthians 11, verses 24 to 26. Point number 4, testimony. He had a lifetime testimony of faithfulness in suffering. And I quote, "Was it wrong for me to lower myself and honor you by preaching God's message free of charge? Even when I was in need, I still didn't bother you. I have not been a burden to you in the past, and I will never be a burden." End quote. And that is taken from 2 Corinthians 11, between verses 7 and 9. Quote, "I have worked and struggled and spent many sleepless nights. I have gone hungry and thirsty and often had nothing to eat. I have been cold from not having enough clothes to keep me warm." End quote. That's taken from 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 27. I quote again, "We don't want anyone to find fault with our work, and so we try hard not to cause problems. But in everything and in every way, we show that we truly are God's servants. We have always been patient, though we have had a lot of trouble, suffering, and hard times. We have been beaten, put in jail, and hurt in riots. We have worked hard and have gone without sleep or food. But we have kept ourselves pure and have been understanding, patient, and kind. The Holy Spirit has been with us, and our love has been real. We have spoken the truth, and God's power has worked in us. In all our struggles, we have said and done only what is right. Whether we were honored or dishonored, or praised or cursed, we always told the truth about ourselves. But some people said we did not. We are unknown to others, but well known to you. We seem to be dying, and yet we are still alive. We have been punished, but never killed, and we are always happy, even in times of suffering. Although we are poor, we have made many people rich, and though we own nothing, everything is ours." And that is taken from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 3 through to 10. Point number 5, ministry. He had a ministry of verified miracles. Quote, "God gave Paul the power to work great miracles." Acts chapter 19 and verse 11. I quote again, "When I was with you, I was patient and worked all the powerful miracles and signs and wonders of a true apostle." End quote. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 12. Quote, "I will not dare to speak of any of those things which Christ has not accomplished through me, in word and deed, to make the Gentiles obedient in mighty signs and wonders by the power of the Spirit of God, so that from Jerusalem and round about to Illyricum I have fully preached the gospel of Christ." End quote. That's found in Romans chapter 15, verses 18 to 20. Further reading. Title versus function. I can find nowhere where Paul was referred to as quote-unquote Apostle Paul as a title, but rather as quote-unquote Paul the Apostle as a call and function. For example, Dr. Paul may have received an honorary title but has never practiced medicine in his life. Paul the Doctor is a totally different story, however. The dangers of titles. Titles are dangerous because they label rather than describe. A bottle labeled medicine could contain poison, and everyone may believe the lie until someone drinks it. The proof of the cake is in its eating, not the beauty of its icing. Jesus warns against titles. Describing the hypocrisy of the scribes and the Pharisees who loved notoriety, Jesus said this, quote, "But none of you should be called a teacher. You have only one teacher, and all of you are like brothers and sisters. Don't call anyone on earth your father. All of you have the same Father in heaven. None of you should be called the leader. The Messiah is your only leader. Whoever is the greatest should be the servant of the others. If you put yourself above others, you will be put down. But if you humble yourself, you will be honored." End quote. And that is found in Matthew chapter 23, verses 8 to 12. In other words, do not take on titles. To the contrary, we must be fathers and be teachers, etc. Do the job, but refuse the title, because none is above the other. We are all on the same level. We are his children, brothers and sisters. Paul, admonishing Timothy, did not say to him, quote, "See to it that people refer to you by your title, Evangelist Timothy," end quote. But instead, Paul said to him, quote, "Do the work of an evangelist," end quote. And that is found in 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 5. Titles are like coffins. Titles in most cases are coffins made to look good, yet filled with decay and stench. Titles destroy meekness by creating a false sense of power and authority. The result is arrogance, insensitivity to the feelings of others, and a tendency to talk rather than listen, boss others rather than serve, impose your way rather than seek God's way. Like a coffin is sealed shut, those who take on titles mostly end up bound by a false sense of who they really are. Every time they are referred to by their title, this nail of deception sinks deeper and hope of escape grows dimmer. Hearts are hardened by the lie of a title. No wonder the scribes and the Pharisees could not receive Jesus. They were so blinded by their own self-importance that they couldn't see his majesty. End of article.